What's up, Swag?
Hey, what's up, man?
Chilling.
Hey, you just mentioned something about the Guru in Wisdom and Stature verse,
Mm-hmm.
and have you ever heard of the Woost translation in the study
Mm-mm.
Bible?
No, the what translation?
Woost is Wuest. I think you
No,
you would
I never
honestly
even,
you would love it,
never
dude.
even heard of it. That's crazy. Let me see if I have
So
it here.
what it does in the New Testament is basically like expands every Greek word that you could think of in its full essence, like where it came from and why
Mm-hmm.
it was written in that way and why that word was selected.
That's
And
interesting.
then he goes into like these deep word studies. But I've heard this before when somebody else was arguing this, and I thought it was an interesting concept. And I was kind of curious what your thoughts were on it.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea essentially is that the word for grew or increased is proekoptenen, and it comes from prokopto, and it literally just means to pave a way.
Mm.
And in Woost's version, that's how he translates it, is as to pave a way. So
Mm.
it's like he paved a way for wisdom, and he paved a way for, maturity, and he paved a way, almost like someone setting the path. And I thought it was a really
That's
interesting.
really interesting. Yeah. So it's almost
Yeah,
like that. Wow. I mean, how does that translation even look like? That's the question that comes in my head. But it almost sounds like it's like a lexicon that just goes into a deeper explanation.
yeah. I mean, the verse in the Woost versions, it says this. It says, "And Jesus kept on hewing as a pioneer the path ahead, making progress in wisdom and maturity, and in favor of the presence of God and men." But if you go into that word, the argument that someone else gave was that basically it wasn't that he was growing as
Mm-hmm.
God, but that he was allowing what was there to be revealed, and people were just being able to see that in stages, right?
Right.
Versus like this like immediate, like you I look at the Quran and where you have like Jesus speaking as a baby, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the opposite. It's like, and I guess the way I'm thinking about it too is like when you think of like mercy or you think of like anger, those aren't really like attributes of God because they require like a human component and dependency.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the way we interact with this divine being who's like always active at any given time. So he has this wisdom, he has this maturity, but he just allows that maturity to be like, uh, you know, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Interacted with or observed at a given
Mm-hmm.
point. So I thought it was really interesting. I'm kind of
That is
curious what you were
interesting.
thinking about it.
No, I mean, it sounds right. That he had right there that that translation or that interpretation of it would imply that there is two natures because how would he know to even pave the way, right?
Yeah.
To
Yep.
for maturity, right?
Yep.
No, it makes perfect sense. Yeah, I would have to look
Yeah.
into that Woost, Wuest.
Yeah. Do you use like a specific Bible app?
On my computer, I use Bible Gateway and Bible Hub whenever I'm debating or whatever.
Yeah,
But yeah,
they might have it. There's another one just called like Bible Study. They have like the 4 volume compendium for it,
okay.
but it's awesome. It even has like some crazy stuff on the like what logos really was and like
Hmm.
yeah, just really beautiful. I mean, like deep ideas. But
That's dope.
yeah, just kind of thought I'd share that. Kind of struck that idea with me. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I appreciate it, bro.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
worries,
that's
man.
beautiful, man. How you been? You been good?
Yeah, just doing a lot of studying and yeah, just I've been reading. Here's another one actually. So obviously I go into a lot of the Muslim lives, and
Mm-hmm.
there's always the Deuteronomy 21 or Exodus 21 that people brought up. Man, if you ever get a chance, read the commentaries from the Jewish philosophers on those, and it
mm.
will blow your mind. Um, they look like the stoning of the child, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Jewish commentators say that this verse that talks about stoning a disobedient child
Mm-hmm.
was only given for like this period of time, and was solely for the point to show that this is the love that a parent should have for their God, or for God, like an adult should have for God,
Mm.
and that stoning a child is completely out of question. The whole purpose and intent behind it was to show the devotion that you should have for God and not for the actual stoning of a child. It's
Mm,
really really interesting.
wow.
Um, but yeah, man, just really the commentaries on that on the Safari are
That's
pretty
good.
deep.
And just for the audience, Swag, you used to be agnostic, right? And then,
I was Christian for a long time, and then
mm,
completely went away, became atheist, and hated everything about the Bible. And then
gotcha.
I became like agnostic in the way I'm like, well, okay, I guess there could be a God possibly. And then through that, I kind of just started to get really heavy into philosophy and some sciences, and was really heavy into like supersymmetry and like theoretical quantum physics, and that kind of like really pushed me into this like, okay, I got to give this more of like a shot, and just started writing my own little treatise on these I guess logical arguments that you can give, and
Hmm.
that kind of pushed me back into Christianity, and in the process solved a lot of the issues that I had with Scripture. So
I see.
yeah, yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
Yeah, it has. It's been interesting to watch because I do see you on these panels and stuff like that. Where I remember a couple months back, I don't know how many months it's been now, maybe 4 months. I don't know.
Yep.
That you were still contemplating whether this is even true or not. So it's awesome to
Yeah,
see,
yeah,
bro.
and I'd hit it from both sides too. Like for me, it was kind of like just wanting to hear what the truth was from people. Because like
Hmm.
a lot of times, like I think Christians can kind of get in the boat where they'll just kind of say things to cover, their lack of knowledge about a certain topic, and to make sure that their belief doesn't get shaken. Like same thing that happens with Islam too, and you have these like defensible states that you put yourself in, and just because you don't want to feel like you're on shaky ground. But in that process, like if you allow yourself to be kind of checked and then you go research, the amount of stuff that you can actually pull out of that is, I don't know, to me it's like I don't know, it's been pretty life changing in a really interesting way too. It's a weird spot that I'm in because like like when I first became a believer, I was like super, that was like my only mentality was like I wanted to die a martyr.
Hmm.
And in a lot of ways, I think there was some bad aspects to that because it prevented me from like living a normal life.
Yeah.
Um, and now that I've come back, it's almost like I've been forced to accept the truth before me, and it, like in the face of all of this kind of like hatred that I had for it, and it's been a pretty tough spot because it's almost like I have to like obey and believe simply because I can't argue against that truth. So it's not like the giddy feelings of like, oh man, yeah, like God this, God that, but it's more like, wow, this is like hard to defeat.
Hmm.
And I can see like God moving in this way, and it actually makes logical sense,
Of
and
course.
so it's different. It's like I want to get back to that point where I have some of those like you know, like beautiful moments and of just
Yeah.
like you know being with God in more of that subjective space rather than objective.
The emotional. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Bro,
but
it's very hard
yeah,
for people like us who dive deep. We wanna prove that what we believe in is true, right?
yeah,
So we have to eliminate those emotions
yep,
um, in order to really be on an objective standard and not be fooled, right, by our own emotions.
yeah,
Um,
for
and then
sure.
once you find truth, you keep digging because, bro, digging for the truth in God is just endless. Like
Yep,
you just keep going, and then it gets to the point. What I've realized for me is that I become so objective about everything, and I love it. And I get to learn who God is, and I understand Him more and more. It's easy. It becomes easier to apply these principles into my life. Not that it's easy, but it becomes easier because I have a better understanding of it.
Yep.
But one thing I notice is that, yeah, you're right. Like getting into that emotional space with God, though, then becomes a little bit harder. It's like
Yeah, for sure.
I'm so delved into like one direction. I got to bring it back to a balance. And yeah, bro, it's about, I don't know, man. My advice, and I'm not one to give the best advice on this because I kind of struggle with the same thing. But what I've noticed is like giving myself more structure. Like I'm great at diving into the word. I'm horrible at praying. Right. So
Yeah.
like praying would be that emotional subjective space that you would be referring to, right? And so now I am inquiring and looking to convert into Eastern Orthodoxy. So the one thing that Orthodox has given me is that the structure of like a lot, like basically giving me the words to pray,
Yep.
and forcing me to be into that space and get in there. Because if I just try to do it myself, I would just be like, I don't know what to say right now. I'll keep it short and sweet, when I do pray. But now it's giving me the words to and be able to own these words to be able to pray. And then the
Yep.
structure that Orthodoxy gives me is like it puts me in that place where it's like, okay, I got like as soon as I wake up, I got to say this prayer. I'm gonna pray before I do this task. I'm gonna pray before I eat, after I eat, those things like that. So that's kind of helped me. And then worship music, bro. Worship music
Yep.
always helps too, bro. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's interesting because I used to like really dislike Eastern Orthodox, and that was like because I was coming from a very charismatic background, and all the gifts, and you had like this like kind of like very very personal relationship with God, and all of the kind of like Western ideas that come with that. But man, like the more I've studied and the more I've learned, like I have started to fall in love with like the Eastern Orthodox, faith, and
Mm-hmm.
just find like the history and like the beauty of what they say, like even their thoughts on like the theological aspects. I'm just like, man, this
Yeah,
just
man.
feels so right.
That's what pulled me.
Yep.
When I first 4 years ago, I was going through something in my life, and I've been a Christian since I was 7 years old. But I've always like I grew up Protestant and everything, and I always had this like thought of like, okay, well, I always had this like where I'll be like on fire for God, like I'm walking with Him, then I go away, walk with Him, go away. There's just so much inconsistency, and then it got to the point where I was like, look, either this God is not real, or I'm looking at God the wrong way.
Yep.
And so I said, let's see if I'm looking at this the wrong way. So I said, okay, well, I need to look at this from how would a first century Jew, and then more so, I get the criteria on Jesus and Paul, Paul, who was a scholar in the scriptures. How would they look at the Old Testament? Like, what
Yep.
did they
Yep.
see?
Exactly.
So that was my journey. I was like, okay, I want to see what they see, and I dove right in, and I started to develop a Messianic Jewish perspective of the Old Testament,
Yep.
and it was amazing, right? When I started, then a couple years later, I started debating on Discord. I knew nothing about Orthodoxy, very little about Catholicism, and when I started debating and stuff like that, Orthodox would be like Catholics too, but more Orthodox would be like, "Hey, that's kind of like what we believe too." And then they started diving me into like the church fathers and stuff. Then I realized I'm like, "Oh wow!" Like, the first Christians, right,
Yep.
who
Yep.
were
Yep.
Jewish, of course they saw it from a Messianic Jewish perspective, right? So it's something that I started to really feel close to were the Orthodox. Now that's not what did it for me. What did it is that now the church that I attended, non-denominational, bless them, bro. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be where I was. They're so open-minded. They're not against looking into church fathers. Or looking into anything else. They were very encouraging on my journey, and honestly, they're the ones that helped me look at it from a Messianic perspective. But now I'm to the point where like I need to now stretch a little bit further,
Yep.
and I need some more structure. I want it for my daughter as well, for her to get more structure into her faith, And she's young and she's very hungry for this stuff. So I want her to have that as well. So yeah, I mean, like all in all, dude, orthodoxy definitely just kind of just fit because of where I started and where how I ended up studying the Bible from a Messianic Jewish perspective. It's almost identical in everything on how the Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox look at things. Even how they look at original sin, it's different from Catholicism. I never agreed with Catholicism or Protestantism on how they looked at original sin. I always looked at it from the Messianic perspective, which is the same as Orthodox, which is different. It's so, anyways, just a lot of stuff, man. I love it. I'm not trying to sell it. I mean, everybody. I'm not against Catholicism, any Catholic or anything. Like I love you guys. It is what it is. Same thing with Protestantism. If it wasn't for Protestantism, I probably wouldn't even know Jesus. So how can I bash
Yeah,
Protestantism? You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't even know it. So everybody has their strengths, man. Every denomination does. Everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. But yeah, bro. So
yeah, for sure, man. Have you read the book? It's by Brother Lawrence. It's called "Practicing the Presence of God."
no. Mm-mm.
Oh man, yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Is like he kind of makes the distinction between like a subjective following and an objective following of God,
Mm-hmm.
where like the objective side of it is kind of like where it sounds like you and I are at. It's like, what does it say? How should we be? Let me
Right.
follow that path, right? But what Brother Lawrence was is like Christ is like living in us, right? And therefore, like it shouldn't be like we see him walk across the bridge, now we're going to walk across the bridge. It's allowing him to like live within us and make those decisions that guide us, and make those decisions that allow us to like walk and behave and like take on the mannerisms that he had. It's pretty awesome, man.
That is
But
pretty dope. It's by who now?
it's by Brother Lawrence.
Brother Lawrence.
Yeah, it's called Practicing the Presence of God. But yeah, I need to
Gotcha.
get back to that because I'm
I
not
hear you,
there
bro.
right now.
We need both, bro. Like,
Yeah,
no,
for sure.
seriously, it's a balance, bro.
Yeah,
And obviously the people that are only one side, like on the subjective side, that could be dangerous too, because as
for
soon as
sure.
somebody hits you with that hard question, you don't know what to say, and then you get super emotional about it.
Yep.
There's a balance of both, man. We need to know. There's a sweet spot to it of knowing the objectivity and the subjectivity of it, man, because it is a relationship with God, bro. If we don't, if all we're doing is looking at the objective side of things and not the emotional, I mean, like objectively, God is an emotional is a relational being. Like how are
Yep.
we going to relate if we don't have some emotions in there, right? So how are we gonna end up doing that? So yeah, dude. But yeah, I would say, bro, you and I, along with all the other Bible nerds on this app, we probably would struggle with being on just primarily on the objective side most of the time, not the subjective side,
Yeah,
bro.
for sure.
We're all in the same boat, bro. You
Yeah.
know. But I think everybody has to find what works to get them back, at least swayed more towards that back to the other direction again. Because
Yeah.
yeah, man. So, well, bro, I'm so happy for you, man.
Thanks,
It's
man.
been great to see your progress, bro.
Yeah,
I'll
appreciate that.
continue. I'll continue to pray for you, bro, and support you. I remember specifically praying for you in a couple of my lives when you were agnostic, man. So it's good to
Yeah.
see, and I'm sure a lot of other people were.
Yeah, appreciate that, bro.
Yeah, no problem, bro.
Thanks, man. Have a good
All
night,
right,
brother.
man. Take it easy. Have a good day.
All right, peace.